Coming to you live from the JRE Tobacco Aladino Mobile Studios, it's the Cigar Pulpit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm the Bishop of Burn, Nick, and with me today, we're talking about how the FDA can suck it. And I'm sure my guest is probably sitting there going, "Oh God." So we have attorney Frank Herrera, who he's been on the show before, and we're talking about basically how the FDA got schooled by the cigar industry about premium cigars. How are you doing, Frank?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'd be a lot better if my lawn people hadn't decided right at the time that you and I were going to record to come on out and do their thing. But, you know, as I was telling you, my listeners seem to be amused by the fact that the lawn people decide to do this to me every time. So whatever. Anyway, so we can get into it, but first I want to get my cigar going. Do you have a cigar? I know you're in your office building. I don't know if you smoke in
Yeah,
your
I'm in my office
not.
building, and we have a little construction going on, so we're not smoking in the building now.
I got you. Okay. Well, I'm going to be firing up a cigar that I actually smoked when the news came down. When the news came down, I was obviously very happy, and I'm looking through the humidor. I want to have something good to smoke. And there was one cigar that just kind of stood out to me, mostly due to the name, you know, and it just kind of stuck out to me. So today I'm going to be smoking the Victory by Warfighter Cigars, and I'm going to read a little description here. The Victory cigar is Warfighter Tobacco's fourth edition of the Victory cigar. Each production run is done in a small batch to maximize flavor and feel. The fourth edition is a closed foot cigar, which this has, with a torpedo cap. It has a Brazilian Matafina wrapper with Nicaraguan fillers. The cigar changes flavor a couple times as you smoke it. It's available in 6x54 closed foot torpedo, very limited production. And if you have to celebrate a victory with a premium cigar, the Victory cigar is the best one that they have to offer. And it just kind of seemed appropriate to celebrate today with a Victory cigar. So we're going to go ahead and cut the cigar. And the official cutting is brought to you by Riverman Cigar Company of Crestwood, Missouri. And guys, Dan the Man Ponder over there at Riverman Cigar Company, he's getting ready for his big in. I've got a fly that is just bugging the holy shit out of me. Anyway, Riverman Cigar Company's got the big event coming up at the end of September, and he's got all kinds of great cigars rolling in. I was just over there the other day. He still has some of the PCA exclusive cigars from Aladino, the Cameroon, and then he's got some really good stuff from EP Carrillo and a whole bunch of other brands. So, guys, if you're in the St. Louis area, you're going to want to swing by Riverman Cigar Company and check them out. And if you're not in the St. Louis area, but you want to support a brick and mortar shop, he does mail orders, so you can give him a call and have a shipment sent to you right away. So that's Riverman Cigar Company, Crestwood, Missouri. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and cut my cigar. These flies, I swear, Frank, I'm telling you, I was talking to you very briefly before we got going, and the humidity here is through the roof. I think I'm pretty much recording on, I wouldn't say the 7th. I'm going to go so far as to say maybe the 3rd level of hell right now. You know, it's hotter than hell, and it's humid, but these flies have added a different complication to my life here.
Well, Dante never lived in your area or South Georgia or Florida. If he did, there'd be more circles of hell for sure.
Exactly. 7 would just be like, you know, the early stuff. But we'll get a cold draw here real quick, and there's a little sweetness to it, but it's also got some nice, like, kind of earthy component to it. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to firing this thing up and celebrating a victory with you, Frank. So let's get into this. Let's talk about this. Because I know you it's a Monday and you've got, you know, stuff on your schedule here. So let's kind of recap in a nutshell. I know I'm asking you to recap what, 7 years worth of legal back and forth here. But in a nutshell, let's recap kind of what the issue was, and then we can get into the judge's the judge's ruling and opinion on this whole thing and kind of how it all wrapped up.
Sure. So first and foremost, I am not part of the litigation team, but my firm did file the first lawsuit against the FDA way back in 16 on the complaint is actually very similar, and we filed it ahead of time, but of course, not having the funding that these other folks had, we took a back seat and let them do the work, and they did a great job. No question that the team that litigated this case understood the task and never slowed down. The basis of the lawsuit, as many of your listeners will know from tracking this for years, was essentially that the agency acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner. And that's a fancy phrase whenever you're trying to challenge an agency's rule or regulation. An agency only really operates because of congressional power, right? So the congressional power was the Tobacco Control Act. And then the agency in 16 issued what they called the deeming regulation. And they had done that previously for cigarettes and some other tobacco products. But in 16, they came after premium cigars and non-premium cigars. And what resulted from a practical matter was many cigar companies, premium and non-premium, essentially went through years of hell. We're not even talking about the litigation right now. We're just talking about they're complying or trying to comply with what they were reading between the tea leaves to be what the FDA thought it wanted from us.
This is where a lot of my listeners might have heard terms like substantial equivalence and, these grandfather brands and that sort of stuff, correct?
Absolutely. So just, we'll get to, your question about, the litigation and what it all means. Yeah. But really, I want your listeners to understand that these companies spend a lot of money and time on me and other firms to try to figure out how to be compliant. We represent many premium cigar clients, and many of those premium cigar clients also make non-premiums, whether they're bundle cigars or Cuban sandwiches or flavored cigars, whatever the case may be. So, they were all spending lots of money on going through the grandfather determination process, which is no longer called grandfather. That was canceled. It's pre-existing predicate products, whatever the terminology is, du jour right now. Ingredient listings. There was a time before the CRA was successful on the warning plans that they had to comply with the warning plan side of things. There's a product listing process. There were inspections. The FDA showed up at many of our clients' factories in the U.S., not foreign yet, and just showed up unannounced, and were there for a day or two and asked silly questions because they don't understand the industry. And it really was an extremely disruptive and costly years since 2016. And again, I'll make no, I'm not going to hide it. Our firm, we made money off of it, and we had to because there was nowhere else for these companies to turn to. There are a few other law firms that understood the process. They're much more expensive. They also come from like a cigarette background. So that it was like trying to, fit a square peg to a round hole. For sure. So we were firsthand listening to and seeing the damage that these irrelevant and ridiculous regulations that were proposed, by the FDA. So give you that background. CRA and CAA, those groups challenged the FDA back in 16 in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. And they essentially say that the FDA is full of shit. The FDA has issued these deeming regulations that don't make any sense. They're not thought out. They're not supported by the proper studies as to what the impact would be on small businesses. And then years of litigation ensued. As anyone has ever been involved in federal litigation, it's a very difficult and very expensive process. And you can think that you have everything lined up and everything is perfect, and then something can change and everything went 180 on you. So the CRA and CAA had some success. They got rid of the warning labels, some other things. There was some summary judgment. And Judge Maida, essentially on August 9th, recently made a final judgment on the fact that the CRA and CAA are correct from that perspective, that the rules were in fact arbitrary and capricious, and they didn't consider a lot of things. The FDA could not really substantiate why premium cigars were or are a current harm to their intended customer base, which are, adults. These are not vape products that 12-year-olds are sneaking behind their parents. They're not other kind of roll your own type things. There's no nemesis here. That's not the right word, but there's no real, public danger by premium cigars. And that was really the intent of the Tobacco Control Act. And that was to save the children, right? And to stop people from starting.
Won't anybody think of the children?
Well, listen,
Anyway.
listen, regulation to a certain point is acceptable. Regulation has existed in almost every industry. Premium cigars and all tobacco products, apart from cigarettes recently, have existed for many, many, many years without regulation. But if the government is going to disrupt a business, small, medium, or large, it needs to, come with the data, and they simply didn't have it. And Judge Maida saw that. Saw that. So where are we? The FDA, as you probably read or seen, has a time period in which they may appeal. They will appeal to a higher court, of course, and essentially say one of many things. Judge Maida erred on this, he erred on the other. And depending on what they appeal, there are different types of review standards that the appeals court can take. And some of the review standards are very difficult to overcome. So the FDA would have to, say it was an abuse of discretion, or whatever the standard is that applies for what they want to appeal. The point of the matter is that they can appeal knowing that they'll lose to buy time, or they can appeal because they think they were wronged and they want to go through the process, and they have the ability to do so. So we don't know what they're going to do. Knowing what agencies do and never say die, I would think they would appeal just to appeal. But it could be that the agency recognizes that it still has the power to roll out new regulations at any time. What the federal judge said was that the deeming regulations from 2016 are vacated, or essentially, void ab initio. They should have never.
Okay.
So am I keeping you there? And we still?
No. I'm with you. I'm following you.
So I think what the listeners need to understand is that the agency still has the power by the Tobacco Control Act to issue any regulations it wants. And so tomorrow it could come out with a regulation or a proposed rule, because it would have to go through the rulemaking process again, and come out with regulations light, different set, or it could go back to the drawing board and find all the support it needs, but it doesn't exist to the extent that they'll need it for premium cigars. So there are a lot of other questions apart from the appeals. Many of the premium cigar participants in the industry are asking whether they will get their user fees back.
That's on my list of questions for you, is regarding user fees.
So that's the hottest topic coming through my office right now, and since this judge ruling. So on the one hand, just so your listeners understand, the user fee is part of the regulations, and it essentially says if you are a tobacco industry participant, you then have to pay your share of the funding of the agency that regulates you, being the FDA. It's not a tax; it's a user fee. So one of the things that the CRA-CAA initially brought to the court, apart from that the rules are just no good, is they said, well, these user fees aren't fair for us because the vape industries and e-cig participants, they're regulated by the same thing, but they don't have to pay user fees, which I thought
Really?
fair. Yeah, they don't pay, and I don't think anything's going to change with that. So, cigarettes pay, everyone pays a user fee except for them. So essentially they said, hey, these regulations are not fair. They should apply across the board. What they didn't say, and if I'm mistaken, I hope someone points out to me, is that, the user fees are, not only is it not fair because there's a participant out there that doesn't pay, but when you vacate this rule, Judge, for premium cigars, then please instruct the FDA to refund our money.
Yeah.
Because there was never, if they never had the power to regulate us, then they never had the power to take our money, right? So the burning question now is, do we, and by the way, most premium cigars are imported, as you probably know. There are some domestically made premium cigars, but even those domestic made premium cigars pay a user fee. But most user fees are paid by importers, the federally regulated TTB importers of record. And so the products come in, and it's 4 cents, 5 cents, whatever the user fee might be. And it's kind of funny system. It's kind of based on last year, the previous year, fiscal year, and then you report quarterly and pay quarterly. I don't do that myself, but that's what I'm told. But the point is August 9th, this judge says, hey, these regs are no good. And August 10th, our phones blow up saying, hey, should my importer pay the user fee? And,
Wow.
on the one hand, you think, well, a federal judge has spoken that the rules are void ab initio. But on the other hand, there could be an appeal. The FDA on its own can just say, hey, you know what? We are going to refund these, and there's going to be a process, and we haven't figured out what the process is yet. So there is a process if you want a user fee refunded, and but it doesn't apply. Well, the process, I believe, does not anticipate the legal issue that's before the FDA right now.
Okay.
So I think what they're going to do is they're going to either appeal and say, no, you keep paying user fees. We're going to ask the federal judge, the appeals judge, to force you to keep paying fees, or we're going to come out with a new rule, or we're going to come out with this process where your importer of record, the party that paid the user fees, has to petition, and then we'll evaluate it. I mean, there's lots of things that could happen. I don't know right now. And in fact, we reached out to the FDA's user fee department, if you will, last week. And surprisingly, we did get a response. Our question was, hey, we represent a lot of premium cigar industry participants who've paid millions and millions and millions of dollars in user fees. What is the FDA's plan now that the judge has vacated this rule? And surprisingly, 2 days later, they responded to us and said, we're currently evaluating this. It's very important. We'll let you know. Which was surprising to me. Well,
I mean, they gave you a response, but it's not a very detailed response, but
hey, if you deal with the FDA like we do, and other lawyers out there that deal with them, that is like something. That's like them saying, hey, we understand.
Yeah, something's better than nothing in this case.
Yeah. So I mean, that's no indication that these monies are going to be deposited back into the participants' bank accounts immediately. But it shows that, obviously they're paying attention. In fact, Judge Maida's order indicated that the FDA's biggest problem with this being vacated would be that it would be subject to litigation on the return of the user fees. And Judge Maida essentially said, that's your problem. You should have thought of that, which I would have liked to see Judge Maida be a little bit more detailed. And say, you never had the power to do this. You took their money. Now return it, and with interest or not interest, whatever the case may be. But he didn't do that. So why? I mean, maybe it would open him up to more appeal issues. Who knows what? But that would be nice. I mean, so going back to you starting with the Victory cigar and all that, as yes, it's a victory, and it cost a lot of money for the industry, and they fought hard. But I don't see it as being over, whether it's further litigation or new regulations that we have to deal with.
So, and to your point, where I consider it a victory is that I think part of the whole issue at its core was defining the differences between a premium cigar and other tobacco products, be it cigarettes, vape, whatever. And by doing so, I feel like this kind of like has now codified, at least in terms of like a judge's ruling, that this is a different product and that it should be treated in a different manner. Now, whether or not that ends up happening, is completely up in the air. Like I had somebody ask me the other day, they said, right now, for example, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, you can't advertise, for cigars on there because they say we don't allow advertising for tobacco products. Now, granted, those are private companies and they kind of have the ability to set the rules of their own company and how they do so. But at the same time, it does lead to the question of, well, since now the judge has ruled that a cigar is different than cigarettes, could I potentially sue Facebook and say, no, I want to promote that, and you know what I mean, and it starts
Listen,
getting into that category.
We have to give up this idea that we have some type of constitutional right for anything against these social media software companies.
Now, I agree with that.
These guys are the new, robber barons. They're the new, totalitarian dictators. They're the public is entirely, poisoned by these services. And I myself, we spend so much of our time and energy, on this garbage, and then we complain because they won't let us advertise or something. It's their ball, it's their field, it's all their rules. So I don't think saying that, hey, this judge change the definition, they don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to politicize this, saying that they're mostly liberals or whatever the case may be, but they just don't care. And the other thing is the credit card companies that are associated, they're also very anti-tobacco. And the reason for that, really, from the financial side, the credit card companies are anti-tobacco, not so much because of health, but because historically there was a lot of fraud with cigarettes, either counterfeit or cross-state sales of cigarettes. There's a lot of organized crime behind cigarette sales and different tobacco things. So financially, that's why they're but the social people. But going back to your point about Judge Mendes' definition, or whomever came up with this definition, I think that's nice. I think that's nice that the product has been defined as this artisanal product and it's handmade and all that. But the truth of the matter is there are other products, in my opinion, that are not entirely meeting that definition, that I would think that the makers would think it's premium as well. So for instance, a Cuban sandwich has long filler and mixed filler tobacco, right? But the definition says that it must have more than 50% long filler. I don't have the definition in front of me, but I think that's what it is. So what if the long filler is 48%, but the quality of the tobacco is even better? Why is that not a premium cigar now if it meets all the other criteria? So and then so there are different definitions also. The TTB, which is the Federal Taxing Authority, has a very basic definition of a cigar. They have a large cigar definition, a small cigar definition. Other states and other federal statutes have different definitions for a cigar. So this idea that we have a definition for premium, I don't think resolves all the issues. And in fact, I think one of the problems with this saying, hey, we're different, is that many cigar companies make premium cigars, but they also make non-premium cigars. So the house is divided many times. And, I think the key really is not so much defining a tobacco product as a cigar or premium or non-premium, but it's more about looking at the practices. So, going in and inspecting, is this a dirty facility? I'm okay, with that, as long as the regulations make sense and they're not overreaching and they're backed by science. But also the advertising to children or stupid names, we're adults.
Oh,
There's no reason.
I 100% agree with you on that. I have had more than a few discussions with people regarding, and I'm not going to name names, but we all know who we're talking about with different cartoon characters and things of that nature on bands.
It's this like infantilism of
yeah,
America that's going on right now. It's like, we get it, you're being cute, and I mean, but to what point? Because there's arrested development that I watch cartoons, I watch Simpsons, I watch Family Guy, I watch all these weird things that my wife just can't stand. I love it, but but the point is when it comes to a tobacco product, we have to be careful and
well,
I
yeah,
think,
because and the discussion I've had it's like, when we're literally in court at the time, at least in court, fighting to prove that we're different from all this. Why are we giving the other side ammunition, showing, cartoon characters and serial characters and various things like that on premium cigars, trying to say, oh, we're different, except this guy,
yeah. I think at the bottom line, not the bottom line, but one of the things that I've seen in the 22 years that I've been doing this in the tobacco industry is that you have to be a bit of a cowboy to get into this business. And I'm, separating the people who've been in the business for a long time, because different generation of different rules and morals and everything else. But you have to be kind of, you just think differently. It's more like, I'm doing this because it's out there, it's not regulated, or I can do what I want. And that's okay, because I think America, and we need some of that. We still need some dissenters. We need people that kind of challenge the rules and all that stuff. But I think, even that, you need to be careful with, like you said, like if there's a law school suit against the FDA, well, we're saying one thing as an industry, the participants are basically, shooting a bird, at the whole thing. Yeah. Does it move the needle? I don't know. But is it necessary? Not, so.
That's a valid point. So, literally right there. So in terms of future issues, obviously we talked about user fees. The other big issue that I continue to hear about, which I don't know how involved you are with this, but is flavor bans. What other kind of issues do you foresee coming down the pipe that need to be addressed in kind of the short term? And then obviously, like you've pointed out, this doesn't rule out that the FDA eventually will come back at the cigar industry at some point or another with other regulations and rules. And, maybe we can talk about, everybody got organized, for this, but how do we look ahead and kind of prepare for future issues, and, so that we're more ready at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I think it's happening. Certainly the CRA, PCA, CAA, all those kind of groups, certainly they think about these things on a daily basis. I'm not involved in any of that. I try to stay independent. I mean, I know people that are involved in those organizations. I've talked to those people, but I try to stay independent of that, because I represent clients and I want to represent my clients, not necessarily industry groups. Because I don't think that an industry group can really speak for everyone's best interest all the time. I think generally they've all done an excellent job, and I think the industry is better off because of these organizations' efforts. But to your question, what is coming? The FDA is overwhelmed. It has been overwhelmed with the vape and e-cigarette PMTA applications. Millions of applications were filed, and they say that they're almost done with reviewing all of them. Many of them were rejected because they were not even meeting the threshold of the filing requirement, or they couldn't meet the studies, the testing that was required. Really big companies, got refusals essentially. So the FDA spent a lot more of its firepower on that segment of products that were deemed. Just to give you an example, we filed a handful, I wouldn't say a handful, over 600 substantial equivalence applications, many of which were for flavored cigars. But we did also file some for premium cigars early, because we wanted to get ahead of the group for some of our clients in case the FDA was actually going to review those substantial equivalence applications. So the point is that, and many of those were actually, or many of those are still pending without much more than them going to phase 3 and not much more communication from the FDA on those. And why? Because the FDA's, all of its efforts were on the vapes and e-cigarette side of things. And then it's also now turning to, when it's done with that, because that's its top priority under its objectives, to curb, youth initiation. It will turn then to the flavored cigar or other tobacco products, roll your own type stuff. Not roll your own, but more kind of the wraps type thing. So, they have proposed some flavor regulations. If they thought that they experienced litigation so far, they better prepare for the litigation that will follow from a flavor ban, because it will be a significant litigation effort by industry groups and also individual companies. We have many clients in that space, and they're not going to take it. These are not vape products. These, even though they're flavored, they're not smoked by 13-year-olds. Again, there's a big misconception between some of these flavored products and in the products that definitely attract kids or whatever the case may be.
Well, to that point, and you I would think you would know this a lot better than I. So, correct me if I'm wrong. California has rules related to flavored tobacco products at this point.
Massachusetts, yeah, several states. Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I mean, are you involved in any sort of legal action or whatever, like on a state basis in like those areas? And can you talk about what's going on with that, if so?
So most of those challenges, I believe there's been challenges in California. I want to say Swisher, I don't have it in front of me right now, but some of the real big players, talking billions of units players, are taking the lead on cases like that.
Okay.
And on state by state, and I'm not licensed in California. I mean, we could work with a firm there. It's just not something that, we're set up for. We're a small firm. But you can be sure that if the FDA launches a nationwide flavor ban on cigars, we'll be involved, whether it's through the agents or the groups, industry groups, or through particular clients, because it's federal practice. We can do federal practice. We have the experience and the ability to do that. So,
well, and I would think I would think that would actually be kind of a testing, or not testing ground. That sounds, kind of haphazard, but kind of proving ground for arguments when you look at, these state cases and that sort of thing. You can kind of determine, like, okay, that's a valid point that needs to be explored. And maybe, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I don't know what I'm.
I mean, listen, much of what I do is common sense. It just happens that we do it all day, every day, whereas other people, dip in, once a month or a couple months. But the point is the problem with states generally, as it relates to tobacco, is definitions are different in each state. The politics of each state is different. Taxation is different. Every state is its own, universe. And yes, to your point, litigation in some states may prove helpful in a larger fight against an FDA flavor ban. Information that comes out, testing, experts, whatever the case may be, all of that could be helpful. But that's, my concern is not so much the states, which it is, but because some of our clients are being hurt considerably by these bans in these states we talked about. But I'm more focused on the federal level of any bans. That's where our focus is.
Gotcha. And then there was one other little follow-up question I wanted to ask, and that was, so you had talked about your clients requesting essentially refunds of user fees. But what about all the money that was spent on, substantial equivalence applications and things of that nature? I mean, there's a lot of other dollars that have flown to the FDA, or flowed to the FDA through this process, that since the rule, was vacated,
Mhm.
they wouldn't have had to go through all that paperwork process and
Yeah.
application process and everything. And so I guess my question is, are they also thinking about requesting that money back as well?
So I think, listen, no question, every person that has spent a dime on lawyers like me, for compliance or attempt at compliance at these FDA regulations, absolutely wants their money back. I don't see that happening at all, and I'll tell you why. Because unlike the user fees, the ability to prove what you spent and where you spent it and how you spent it and all that, and whether you did it appropriately or not appropriately or efficiently, whatever the case may be, there's no way that the FDA will have a process for that. I can't think of a single example in agency history, any agency history, where something was vacated and then the that agency refunded, attorney's fees, or there are no
Oh,
fines.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to be able to get attorney's fees back, because
But there's no
realistically,
filing, there's no filing fees.
oh, okay. See that? Well, that shocks me just in and of itself, because I mean, I've got some experience working for the government, and obviously, I pay my license plate fees and everything else,
Yeah,
and so it's
yeah,
like it
yeah.
doesn't. It shocks me to hear that there was a application for something with a government agency that didn't have some sort of a fee attached to it.
Well, that's what the user fees are there to support, right? The user
I see.
pay for the
Okay.
employees and the process and everything else. Yeah. So some of the things that a client would have spent money on were product listing, warning plans at the time, grandfather, that's what they were called at the time, applications, substantial equivalence reports, things of that nature. And then, the way in which we upload those and file those with the government, the CTP, there's no filing fee for that. So
Okay.
again, if you compare that to the user fee, there are quarterly reports, there's actual money that went from one bank account to the other. I think that's something that's a little bit more traceable and refundable, if you will. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Mhm.
All right. Well, why don't we now, if you have a moment, I have a segment. It's the Villiger Entertainment Report, and basically, this is an opportunity where you and I just kind of talk about various. My listeners like to know. They like recommendations for TV shows, movies, podcasts, books, whatever it is that you've been
Mm.
entertained by recently that you want to give a shout out to. So we'll jump into that briefly.
Jeez.
It's time for the Villiger Cigars Entertainment Report, brought to you by Villiger. Villiger Cigars, one of the leading cigar and cigarello manufacturers in the world, founded in 1888 and still family owned and operated. Head over to villigercigars.com and check the store locator to find a shop near you that carries them. We guarantee that Villiger Cigars will be a wonderful addition to your humidor and cigar rotation. So what have you been watching lately, or what have you been reading or entertained by? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
You are putting me on the spot, but I am a junkie of television and movies.
All right, perfect.
Yeah. So if I could, I would sit in front of a TV all day, every day, and just consume, movies. So my wife's not too crazy about that, but I just love it. What I've been watching? So Apple TV, there's a show called Drops of Gold, Drops of
Okay.
God. I think it's called Drops of God. And how do I explain it? So there was the story is that there was a famous wine expert, French, and he moved to Japan to be a professor. He wrote a lot of books. He did a lot of interesting things about wine. And he passed away, and notice is given to his daughter, who lives in France, to come to Japan because, to get her inheritance. But it turns out that the inheritance, there's a test, and she has to compete against someone from Japan who was a student of her father's. And they have to basically, taste wines and, all this challenge and everything comes from that. And she's like, I can't believe this. It's my inheritance. Why am I challenged? So I think it's fascinating. It's about wine. It's about history. A lot of really cool stuff in it. I don't know. I enjoy it. Lincoln Lawyer, you know, obviously the lawyer side of things, but
You're not the first one to bring that up on the show. I've got a friend of mine, Travis, and he loves that show.
yeah. So I read the book way back when. I watched the movie with McConaughey, I think it was, way back when. And then this series. It's pretty true to life on a litigator's life, you know, the ups and downs and the strange things that happen and, you know, some of the ethical issues. So I like it for that reason. Books, it's been so long. I mean, I was an English major, and in my 20s and 30s, I read quite a bit. But you know, I spend my day reading stuff, you know, nonsense now. So by the time I get home, yeah. But I do read a lot of newspapers, well, online newspapers, of course. You know, just random stuff. Anything about golf, you know, I'm getting to that age where I'm obsessed about golf again. So, you know, anything about golf, of course. Movies, I don't really go to the movie theaters at all. Just don't do it. Between
You know,
yeah.
I love the theater experience, but I haven't gone a whole lot this year. There just really hasn't been a whole lot that's caught my eye. And I think you're just hitting on it, is that Netflix and the streaming, it seems like the movie theaters have become the domain of the big blockbusters, and the more character driven kind of smaller films, they're just going straight to streaming.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to see Barbie.
You're not into the Barbie phenomenon. What about Oppenheimer? That's the other one, right?
Oh man, I could care less.
I would say I haven't seen either one.
You know, the problem with movies like that, I'm sure it's fascinating. I'm sure it's insightful. I'm sure I'm an idiot for not seeing it, but you know, it's as many years ago. I don't know if it's going to be some revisionist history about what actually happened. I don't have time for it, and maybe it's politicized. You know, you know, I'm not into it.
I get it.
Watch some stupid. I'm trying to think of the name of this really stupid cartoon on, was it Netflix or Prime or something? It's about this kid that goes to school to be a ship's captain. I don't know if you've heard of this. And then he's like the worst in his class. So the only job he can get is a cartel owns this cruise ship, and they use the cruise ship to smuggle drugs.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, Captain something or another, but it's hilarious. You got to watch it.
Okay. All right. I'll find that.
Yeah.
I like what's the one? There's one on Netflix that I watched and like got away from, and now I'm back watching it again. It's got Nick Kroll, and he's a little kid, and he's going through puberty, and he's got like puberty monster and all this and everything, and it's filthy, but oh my god, it's the funniest freaking show. Yeah. I don't remember the name of that one, but no, I had my son this weekend, and so obviously my TV was dominated by Thomas the Tank Engine for most of the weekend. But I've been watching Tulsa King on Paramount Plus with Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah,
he plays a freaking mobster who serves 25 years in prison, and then when he comes out, you know, the mom's like, "Hey, we don't have anything for you here, so we're going to ship you to Tulsa, and we want you to start up an operation down in Oklahoma." And it's just all the like stuff that happens there, and you're thinking, "Oh my god, Sylvester Stallone, dude, it's such a good show." Like if you're into mobster shows, it's so great. It's really really great.
How's it compared to Narcos Mexico?
You know, I'll be honest, I haven't watched a whole lot. I need to get back into that. I saw just a little bit of the very first season of Narcos, and I don't know why I fell out of that. Well, now I do. I was watching it right before my divorce, and so then I had to move. So, you know, but anyway, yeah, so I need to get back into that. But I mean, it's good. I mean, Sopranos is kind of my high bar for you know, mobster TV shows, and I wouldn't necessarily put it there, but it's made by that Taylor Sheridan guy, the Yellowstone and Mayor of Kingstown.
Oh,
and all that. So it's kind of that level of quality, I would say, you know. So Mayor of Kingstown's another one. I don't know if you've watched that at all with Jeremy Renner.
No,
that's also on Paramount Plus. That's a fantastic show as well. But There's a movie you mentioned Apple TV, and that's actually one streaming service I don't subscribe to. But there's a movie that I think they're doing, and I don't know if it's out yet or not, but it's about Tetris.
I've seen it. It's actually
Is it
fantastic.
good?
Yeah, it's actually really good. Yeah. So,
Okay.
I don't want to spoil alert or anything, but I didn't know the history of where it was developed, how it was developed. But just I'm not going to spoil anything, but essentially it was developed by some programmer in Russia and during the Cold War.
Yeah.
So they want to license it throughout the world. I think it's a U.S. guy who wants a license throughout the world, and of course, it's a communist country at the time, and they're just like, "You're not going to take our IP." And I'm going to spoil it if I talk anymore, but it's
Okay.
really interesting. If you like Tetris, if you like gaming, if you like business, if you like intellectual property, all that. And then there was, I'm embarrassed to say, there was one on Beanie Babies as well.
Really?
Yeah. So it's the history of Thai products or Thai industries about Beanie Babies, and gosh, it's oh my gosh, very well known comedian plays the founder. Gosh, he's the Between the Ferns guy.
Whoa. Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah. So
yeah.
He's the founder, and it's a little campy, but it's actually pretty good. I don't know. I enjoy that. I like, stories like about, how something was developed and all the ups and downs of the business,
For sure.
Mm.
There's a documentary on Netflix, and I don't know if you're into documentaries at all, but it's what's the name? It's like Hey Pepsi, where's my jet, or something like that.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah,
I thought that was fantastic.
Well, that's a perfect example of the frustrations of being a lawyer and
Yeah.
a plaintiff and of being defense counsel, like the whole process. Because on the one hand, you take black letter law, and that was an offer and it was accepted and whatever else. But then the other hand, it was just, ridiculous, of course. So I thought that was good. Gosh, I thought of something else just a second ago. Shit, I can't remember.
It happens. It happens.
Oh,
like I said, this is. Oh, I'm sorry.
Painkillers. Have you seen that?
No, I just started seeing some promotion for that on my Facebook feed this weekend. Actually,
Yeah.
that's got who's in that. There was who was the actor on the poster thing that I kept seeing?
It's going to come to me, but I've watched about 3 or 4 of them.
Jason Bateman, was it?
No, Jason Bateman's not in it. It's
no.
No, it's gosh, what is this guy's name?
We're gonna get it.
Yeah. It's a little politicized, it's a little campy, it's it's a little goofy at times, but it's, again, it gives you a little background of the history of the product. And I can see his
Matthew
face.
Broderick. Matthew Broderick.
Yeah. Who doesn't look like Matthew Broderick, because they've aged him and all that. So
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, there was another one that had was it Michael Keaton? Not Michael Keaton. What was the one that was on Hulu about? Maybe it was Michael Keaton about painkillers. This goes to show the amount of show prep that I do. I'm just
the poor guys listening to this right now are like,
I know,
screaming it out, or they're walking away.
There's somebody
when they're talking about something interesting.
Dude, there's somebody out there just screaming at their thing, just like, come on, it's this, and I just, I don't know. Of course, I can't just bring up Michael Keaton and see like.
Well, going back to Apple TV for a minute, the thing with Apple TV is it's hit or miss. There's
Dope sick.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So going back to Apple TV, hit or miss.
Apple TV, I think, they've got some great stuff, but then some of the stuff, it's just so, deep politicized, or it's like this more morality story or something, and you're in it, and then they just do or say something, you're like, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's just screams California. Yeah.
Well, everybody talks about Ted Lasso. Have you watched that?
Ted Lasso is fantastic. I didn't watch it.
Okay. All right. So that one's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Highly recommend it. If you're not into soccer or football, whatever you call it, as I'm not, if you just like an entertaining show that's smart, really, really good show.
Okay. All right. Well, that might be.
You
I
gotta
might.
watch.
Maybe it's a 1 month subscription. I subscribe to Apple TV and just burn through everything that I'm
I'll
hearing
just
is
give
good.
you I'll just give you my login right now so everybody can
Oh well,
my
there you go. Yeah, until they start cracking down on it. It seems like everybody's starting to crack down on that.
So funny
So
story about that. Not to belabor this issue, but years
yeah.
ago when my stepkids were actually living at home, my stepdaughter was traveling, and I would constantly try to get onto my Netflix, and it wouldn't allow me. Too many users, too many users, too many users. So I'm like, who the hell has it? So it turned out, like, as kids do, she would give the password to her friends. And so there was people like all over the world using my damn password. So
Oh, that's
I would have
funny.
to change it all the time, and they find it and do it again, do it again. So I just a
That's
whole new account they
funny.
didn't know about. So
That's funny.
life
Well, I guess that's part of the issue for Netflix. I mean, that's the thing. From a practical standpoint, from a business standpoint, I understand why they would want to crack down on that. On the flip side, I just think realistically, I don't know how that works, but
so
you
there's a
know,
generation. I mean, not to sound like an old fuddy-duddy old dad, but I mean, there's an entire generation that sees no harm in it at all.
mhm.
They don't see it as stealing. They don't see it as, the entitlement. They just think that, hey, someone paid for it, so I should be able to see it. But as a trademark attorney, as an IP attorney, that money has to go to pay for things. It has to go pay for actors and whatever. I mean, so you've got to get revenue from what you're putting out there. So it's a
Yeah,
generational thing. I'm not sure that's ever going to change. You see it with other type of sharing of content and not caring whether you give any attribution to content or not. So
gotcha. Well, that's been the Villiger Entertainment Report, and so now I'm going to briefly talk about My Monthly Cigars. And guys, My Monthly Cigars is a premium cigar subscription service where you can get a box of cigars sent to you at your door every month, come in a variety of sizes. You get the Robusto box, which is 4 cigars for $30, or there's the El Presidente box, which is 8 cigars, 2 of everything in the Robusto box for $50. It's a good way for you to try a variety of cigars and get them shipped to your door. And if you use offer code PULPIT, that's PULPIT, you get free shipping on your first box. And while you're over there, make sure you pick up some of that fucking good coffee. Try the Lounge blend or the Daily Press, which is the Pulpit blend, and get yourself some coffee to go along with those cigars. That's mymonthlycigars.com. And I want to briefly touch on my Warfighter victory here. I'm down to the final third. I haven't really talked about the cigar all that much. It's been a great smoke, a little bit of spice to it, some earthy flavor. It's smoked wonderfully despite the high humidity. I've had very little burn issue going on with it. I have had to kind of puff on it quite a bit to keep it going, mostly just due to the fact that, like I said, it's very high humidity. And so it's wanting to go out maybe a little quicker than normal. But, we're dealing with it. It's no big deal. So, well, Frank, I really want to thank you for taking time out. Like, and to my listeners, you guys don't know kind of the hassle that we've gone through to make this happen. Because, last Friday we were scheduled to do this, and my internet decided to shit the bed, and this morning I wake up and I'm getting everything set up, and that's when my landscaping guys decided to show up, and obviously, as you've heard throughout the show, they've still been going, but the mowing is done, and that was the bulk of it.
And
And yeah,
in fairness, we were supposed to do this Thursday night, but I canceled on you last minute,
yeah,
which started this whole train wreck. But we're
that,
here.
but that's okay, because then I was able to get Nick Gervais on, and we were able to open the August My Monthly Cigars box, because that arrived in the mail probably right about the time that you canceled. So the universe came together to give me show content, and it allowed me to have a nice week of discussing this FDA, because I have you on today to discuss more of the like kind of legal side of everything. And then for Friday's show, I have Drew Newman coming on to
Oh, great.
discuss kind of some of his version of that, but then also kind of the perspective of the manufacturers that were involved in all this, and to discuss kind of the efforts that they put in, and what they see going forward. So it's
Sure.
kind of a whole FDA themed week here on
Yeah.
the show.
Well, you're doing a great
So
service, so keep it up.
we're trying our best. Between the dick and fart jokes, we've got actual education. So anyway, Frank, if there's ever anything we can do for you, obviously reach out and let me know. You always have a place to talk here on the Cigar Pulpit.
Very good. I appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, guys, oh yeah, socials. Before I go, for as much as we're talking about how we don't like the socials, I'm on Instagram at the Cigar Pulpit. I have Facebook where we have the Cigar Pulpit Parishioners group page. People can share their cigars they're smoking and whatever else is going on there. I'm on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it. I don't really do much on there. You can watch this on YouTube. And once again, I do need your calls for this month's Ask the Boys show that's coming up at the end of the month. So get your calls and questions, whatever in. That number is area code 863-874-0000. And my special guest this month to help me answer questions is going to be my dad. So keep the questions. Just don't let me have to Adam protocol any calls. Like, guys, keep the questions like decent, okay? It's my dad, for God's sakes. Don't get in the gutter. But anyway, is there anywhere people can reach out if they want to follow? I don't know if you want people reaching out to follow you or not, but I don't know if there's anywhere that you want to promote, tag, plug.
No, it's funny because years ago I was heavy in the early days of social media and Twitter and all that stuff, and I was promoting Cigar Law. I am Cigar Law at Twitter. I don't post much there anymore, but and I had a blog called Cigar Law, and it was the early days of kind of keeping track of things. On Instagram, it's my name, Frank Herrera. That's mostly family stuff, but whatever if you find it interesting. I also have Instagram of Cigar Law, but again, I don't post much there. Our law firm is still H New Media. We're rebranding to Herrera Sardinia, so we have those web accounts if you want to know about the law firm. We mostly specialize in the cigar industry, so we can't help you on divorces or real estate or anything of that matter, but I'm always open to if you're a cigar smoker and you have a legal question. I probably won't be able to help you if it's not cigar related, but I could point you in the right direction and maybe find you a good lawyer in your area. So, and I don't make a referral fee from that or anything. It's, something we could do to help you out. So, if you have a question, you want to reach out, HerreraSardinia.com or HNewMedia.com.
So any small manufacturers that maybe are looking for some legal representation? No, not really.
No,
okay.
No, it's more.
I'm trying to help you out here.
No, we're really not taking any new clients at all.
Okay.
We're in a nice position where we have a good stock of clients that keep us very busy. We're not a very big firm, so we try to.
That's nice.
Yeah, we try to keep our current clients happy. Of course, that could always change depending on circumstances, but we're not actively looking for new clients at all.
Okay. Well, then there you go, guys. Well, Frank, once again, thank you so much for taking time out. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Guys, this has been another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm Nick. That's Frank. Everybody, stay safe, stay smoky, and fuck cancer. All right.